Speaking here. Candles getting late.
All right, Angels Overcast, second edition. One of my closest friends in the whole world, board member James Young, and long-term person in recovery. And we're just going to ask him some questions, see how this flows, and anything you want to say to the audience before we get going, James, or what's up?
Yeah, I always wanted to be on TV, so this is my first podcast ever. It's an honor to be here, and I'm just excited to see where the conversation is going to go, Mike. It's great to be with you. I'm proud to be on the board of Angels Over Addiction, and there's no lack of need in the world for people to have resources to help them recover. So I'm just really glad to be here.
Thank you for coming, dude. And all right, let's start it really quick here, man. So, favorite movie quote and how it relates to recovery.
It's funny. We always talk about this, so it's like a little bit of a setup, right? So, one of the movies one of my favorite movies is True Romance. It's not really a spiritual movie, right? But there's a scene in the movie that's an epic scene. And the scene is with Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper. And he's got him in a seat and he's kind of trying to get information from him. And in the scene, he punches him square in the nose. And he says, "That smarts, doesn't it? That's as good as it's going to get. And it's never going to get that good again." And for me, just with my background over the past years, it really reminds me of addiction. Because wherever you are right now, where you're looking for help, that's as good as it's going to get. And it's never going to get that good again. Because this thing is chronic and it's progressive and it's fatal. So just that scene, when he says it that way, I'm like, oh my God, we could tell anybody new to the community, this is as good as it's going to get. And it's never going to get this good again. In the same scene, ironically, he also is asking Dennis Hopper all these questions about where his son is. And he says, "See, what we have here is a little game of show and tell. You're telling me everything, but you're showing me nothing." And for me, one of the challenges in recovery was to really be honest, and honest as far as what's going on behind the curtain, right? It's easy to say the right things for me, even till today. It's easy to say the right things. Like, I know a lot of information, so I could tell you a lot of things, but I could be showing you really not much of what's going on in my mind or in my heart or my emotions, whatever it is. So it's just the same scene, but I always relate those two things some way, shape, or form to recovery.
That is so deep. That is so deep. Yeah, getting punched in the face never going to get any better than this. And then it's like, what is that one saying that I'm going to mess it up here on the podcast, but it's your actions speak so loud, I can't hear the words you say.
Yeah, it's something in the realm of a sermon, right? I'd rather see a sermon than hear a sermon, right?
100%.
So what you're doing is so loud, the way you're being, that I can't hear the words that you're saying. And, in my own humanity, Mike, it's funny because it's very easy for anyone, if you're a human being, to do that, to be saying one thing. But if I was following myself with a video camera and I got to watch how I'm being may not be a match for what I'm, you know what I mean, how I'm behaving.
Right.
So,
yeah.
That's
the journey of recovery, really. And so, like, we're hoping, we're praying, like, new people are logging in and they're going to get some information on early recovery. So, you with multiple years, is it 28, 20?
It will be 29 in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in a row?
In a row. That's the impressive part. And I just want to say this to anybody that's new watching this, or even, sometime in recovery, it is a lifelong journey. And I wanted to arrive really bad. Do you know what I mean? Be done like very quickly. And really, if we got in a time machine and we went back to when God brought me to the recovery community, and I said to you, "Mike, this is me. Listen to what I'm saying. And you have to bet $1,000. And what do you want to bet? $1,000 that I'm going to stay here or go?" It would have been a smart bet to bet against me. from what I was saying. So really, a lot of this happened in spite of me, not because of me. And it's really humbling to really, really, really know that. Like, and that's just been a little bit of my experience. So if you knew, no matter where you are, it's okay. It wasn't anything that I did that brought me to where I am today. And yeah, I have a lot of reference points because I've been here. So if you live life, whether you're in recovery or out of recovery, a lot of things are going to happen. It's the nature of life.
Mhm.
But it's not been a function of me. It's really been a function of a lot of things that were given to me at the right time by the right people.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is a podcast, so we can openly talk about grace, and we don't have to
Yes.
be correct. So, what is the definition of grace? Unwarranted favor.
Yeah, an undeserved gift. Nothing I could do to earn, nothing I could do to deserve. It's been hard enough on my journey personally just to accept it.
Mm-hmm. So let's take you back 29, 28 years ago when you're new to recovery. What are some of the key points that the new people newer to recovery, what could help them?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this, and I don't think it's one thing, but a few of the things that I thought about with this were in the beginning, I didn't understand. I understood intellectually that this is classified addiction as a disease, and it's physical, which I really understood. And I understood intellectually mental and spiritually. Intellectually, I understood what you were saying to me. I know what the word mental is, and I know what the word spiritual is. But I did not know that the problem wasn't in the substance, it was in my mind, my emotion, and my spirit. And that was, I needed a lot of help and a lot of time. So, some of the things that helped me is there's so many people in the recovery community. There's a lot of different vehicles that you could connect to and with like-minded people that are on this journey that could show you the way out. So whether it's sponsorship, if you label it, or mentorship, like I needed for somebody to hear what I was saying and be able to give me feedback beyond, Einstein says that I couldn't fix my sick mind with my sick mind. So I really, mentorship, connecting with people, like whether I believed what people were saying at the time or believed that I could really live a life with joy and peace. Like if whether I believed that or not, I couldn't deny what I was saying. And that was really, really important to me to have somebody to guide me and also to go to a place where I could be a part of and connect with like-minded people. So whatever vehicle you choose, there's a lot of different vehicles out there. There's a lot of support in the recovery community and a lot of different communities out there. So being with people was paramount. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for people. I really do give all the glory for me to God. And if you have a problem with the word God, you could use the word love. But whatever power, I just had to know I wasn't the power, right? Even nature, the ocean. If you could stop the ocean from coming in and out, I'll follow you. So there are things that were more powerful for me. I couldn't rely on myself. I needed some kind of power greater than myself. And one of the greatest powers that I still continue to find and how it shows up is really God works through people for me.
Okay. So let's build on that a little bit. I know for me, I was told, I'll give credit to her. She's a wonderful soul in the Jersey Shore. She would say vegetable soup, and vegetable soup gives you more vegetable soup. Saying like two sickies don't make a welly. So like the people, or were you hanging out with longer members of recovery, other newcomers, your old friends? Like who are the people?
Well, old friends, like people, places, and things was something that was really talked a lot about. Like, you know what I mean? If you go to a barber shop every day, eventually you're going to get a haircut, right? When I had hair, not today. I still get a buzz. But so after the meetings, when God brought me here, I was 26 years old. And I would go to the meetings, and after the meeting, people would go to a place called Dessert Plus. It could be a diner or whatever it was, but this place was called Dessert Plus. And I really felt like I cannot believe that this is where I am in my life. I'm like hanging out with the AARP, like most of the people older. There wasn't no young people in the community. Today, it's a lot more young people given different substances, between the opiate pandemic to heroin to fentanyl. Like, that's still going on. It's really been devastating to the families and communities. But I really did I spent a lot of time with my sponsor, my sponsor at the time, a guy by the name of Vietnam Bob, and he wasn't really that nice to me. I told him he was trying to brainwash me, and he said that my brain needed to be scrubbed. And, looking back, I can't disagree with him. And even when he told it, even though I was annoyed, I knew it was kind of true. So I did spend time with a lot of people that were grounded in and had a lot of wisdom and reference to the things. They were very direct. They were very straight. They loved me enough to hurt my feelings and tell me the truth. Mm-hmm. And the culture is always evolving. So, it was a different culture back, when I came into the community. But I spent a lot of time with them, and I did. I mean, there were people that were younger people that we did, sober activities with, and I went on vacations and conferences. Like, I really needed to know for myself that my life wasn't over and that I could still have fun again. So it was a combination of both of those. There was like a mix. There were a couple of younger people that were in the community for about 5 years. So I spent a little bit of time with them as well. And then there were people that were new to the community that, we would speak or do different activities. We'd go out for pizza every Friday night and, just try and have fun. We would watch shows. We did like a lot of different things together at the time. At the time, I didn't have a family. So I was, young and single. So I had a lot of freedom. And, I grew up inside of the community, was my experience.
So early on, what was the biggest challenge? Maybe your first 5 years, 10 years, what was the biggest challenge in recovery?
Well, I think that one of my biggest challenges that's been consistent from the beginning is my ego or my identity is never going out. It's always coming back in. So there's not any place to arrive. There's still a voice. I don't care what you label it, if you call it ego or identity. There's one voice in there that if I listen to that voice, it's trying to kill me. And that voice never goes away. I've gotten better at seeing it and not having it rule my life. So that's been a big, challenge, because when I came here, I was so spiritually sick and so empty. I wasn't connected at all to myself or a power greater than myself. I was killing myself and I couldn't stop, and I was full of loneliness and I was full of shame. And one of the things that happened, I think, was I kept coming and I kept listening and I kept surrendering. Even in life today, no matter how much reference I have or how much I practice, there's still places in my life where I continue to come to the end of myself and have to surrender again. And my mind and my ego tells me you should be better than that. You should be further along than that. So really, it's been that and accepting my humanity, and not as an excuse, like, oh, well, I'm human, so that's why I could be a jerk. It's I'm human, to give myself that compassion and grace. That was actually harder for me to accept on my journey than my addiction and alcoholism. It was my humanity.
Very deep. So I don't know if it comes through here. So the positive self-talk is one of the pillars we have at Angel Over Addiction. So as you're talking, as you're sharing, I really identify with that, because like my default program is I'm negative. I wake up, here's another day. And then to try and bring positive messages into my spirit, my mind, that shifted everything in my life. It's such a big thing with mental health. And, that's a big part of my story is mental health, like, as you know, hopefully. And I'm just really blessed, but telling yourselves positive self-talk and then get into spirituality. What are some of your practices for spirituality? Broad question, but.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I'll say too is, I heard somebody say so many people have said so many things on the journey that like hit you. And one of the things that I heard was, be careful what you say to yourself, because apparently you're listening. You know what I mean? I just find that, funny. on the broader topic of spirituality, there's a lot of different things that I could say. I mean, I'm always have been a seeker, and I still seek and always looking for, like, just the next opening. I think for a long time I sought to arrive somewhere. Like, this is like the answer now. And that was one of the things I think I struggle with too. Coming here so spiritually sick, it's so easy for me to become spiritually arrogant. Like, I know now, and this is the right way. And even if I'm saying, oh no, I know it's not the right way, in my mind, I believe my way is the right way. You know what I mean? So that's like an internal thing. But as far as spirituality, one of the things that I'll say in the simple, I could say a lot of things and go on, but I don't think it will make a difference for anybody. But I think something that continually makes a difference for me is to continue in spirituality to look to see what I can give instead of what I could get. And that's easier to do. It's outside of my immediate family than it is to do inside my immediate family. The people closest to me are the people that it's harder for me to practice the spiritual principles of not being selfish and looking to see what I could do for them in any way, to be a service. I could be service outside of the house like crazy, but inside of the house, it's more difficult. I'm married, for 22 years it will be, and I have a daughter who's 21 years old. So those are the relationships that are harder. I always send my best representative out into the community, but at home it's really, and I need to be restored continually to the truth and restored back to love. And I think that's some of the essence of spirituality without going into some conceptual things or things that I've experienced that have been great, but me telling you about them, I don't know if that's really going to make a difference.
Well, let's say if you're like a classic car and I wanted to check out the car and I looked under the hood, I'm gonna look at the engine. So what's the engine that drive you? Maybe what are the rituals, spiritual practices that you do, or what's your daily look like with 29 years of sobriety, 28 and a half years of sobriety? What's it look like?
It still looks like when I came into the community, they really stressed that this had to be the most important thing in my life. They didn't say it was the only thing in my life, but they said if I kept this up front and had it be the most important thing, the rest of the areas of my life would be okay. They would work out. So I still am somebody that looks to connect as much as possible, pretty much daily. Like, I'm very regimented. I'm like Rain Man, Wapner at 4. I kind of go to the same places to be with the same people, and I bounce around a lot doing that. But there's nothing more than I love to be connected and to almost like time out a home base when you were a kid, like safe and home base. Like, I need a daily connection and reminder to be restored back to love. And that's been a big thing over the past 3 years. For whatever reason, it's been restoration, restored back to the truth and restored back to love, so I could go out in my life, in all areas of my life, and kind of bring that instead of the ick, you know what I mean, that comes up. So, I mean, I'm somebody that does pray, and I pray for a lot of people, and not like praying like, oh, give Mike, this or X, just lifting people up to be surrounded in love and peace and guided. I pray for that a lot myself. A lot of my prayer is just thank you, not any kind of, I have some set prayers that I say. I do meditate pretty much on a daily basis, and that's really, really been something that's impactful, just to get to see that I'm not my thoughts, and I have a lot of thoughts. And if you put a speaker near my brain and you turned it up loud and people could hear my thoughts, they're not all good, But there was a time when I didn't even know that I was that. I thought I was my thoughts. So meditation has been a real, real access point to getting recentered and restored and get to see the things that are going on inside of me. So that's a big spiritual practice. So connecting with people, there's so many opportunities. Last night I traveled in from North Carolina to New York, and it was like, we left at 5 a.m. and drove all day. And last night I was at the hotel, and technology has afforded us so many more opportunities than when I came into the community. I had a beeper, not a cell phone, but it was a Zoom meeting and it was, recovery based, and there was a meditation that was done as part of the meeting. And just to be able to leverage those things and connect and stay awake. That's been a big thing. How do I stay awake? And these are some of the things. It's practice. It's all practice, practice. I have not mastered, I don't think, one thing.
So again, this is for the newcomer, person new in recovery, or maybe 5 to 10 years in recovery, but not feeling it.
Yeah.
You want to go in deeper on your meditation journey? What would you recommend to the newcomer in recovery with meditation? A lot of times I hear, oh, I can't stay silent for 20 minutes. So I have bipolar disorder. I've never stayed silent for 20 minutes of my life.
Yeah, I think that there's so much available in practice, and there's no way to do anything wrong. It's like willingness. Like, am I willing just to have an experience with this and see what happens? Sometimes I have great experiences meditation, and sometimes I struggle even in the meditation. But to come a little deeper, to get away from meditation for a minute, like, one of the things that I believe is key is participation. I heard somebody recently say there's 3 types of people that come to the recovery community: participants, attendees, and visitors. And the people that participate, to wherever you're at, the willingness just to participate and be of service. And I think that it's important to be of service when you get here. And I think it's important to continue to never stop being of service, whether it's in the community or outside of the community, a church, your family, whatever it is. I think that's one of the keys to the kingdom, no matter if you're brand new or you're sober, especially if you are away from the substance for 5 or 10 years. If I'm not looking to continue to see what I could bring to the table, if I'm just looking to take, that's really where the sickness lies for me. So that is a key, whether, continue. One day, the guy with 2 days could give the guy with 1 day hope. It's crazy. Like, and probably more hope than I can give them, because I'm here a long time, and I thought people that were away for a long time were losers, just to be honest with you. I'm like, what do you still come here for? Like, what are you still doing this for? I didn't understand that the condition was like diabetes. If you have diabetes, you need to take insulin every day. If you have this, if I don't take care of myself, whether I use substances or not, I get really sick mentally, spiritually, like just dis-ease, anxiety, huge anxiety. And the anxiety comes up as part of life, but the meditation and the practice in this way of life never fails. You hear a lot of statistics, and I feel like the recovery community works 100% of the time. That's a good statistic. 100% of the time, I believe it's 100% of the time.
I love that. When you were talking earlier about the past 2 to 3 years where your experience has just been focusing on love. And so what I've noticed, with my experience, I can pick out a lot of people with mental health challenges just by looking at them or hearing what they're saying or what they're not saying. So I've noticed in the recovery community, both here in New Jersey, South Florida, I'm sure North Carolina too, Staten Island, a lot of more mental health is a lot more prominent in recovery community. What have you observed as far as over your years of recovery, like what helps people that have mental health challenges?
Well, one of the things that I really try and stay present to is, if somebody's coming into the community and they tell me they have a toothache, I'm not a dentist. I can't help you with a toothache. You got to go to a dentist. So when people come to the community and they have mental health challenges or dual diagnosis, they need to work with a professional that can help them with that. And I don't know what people need in that realm, but I think that it's important that we point people to the professional that could help them. So that's one of the things that I do notice. It's one of the reasons why I accepted coming onto the board, because of the world, even without addiction, is suffering from mental illness. So I do believe that there's things that are on the pillars that are on here that can and will make a difference for anybody for their mental well-being. And then if they're diagnosed with something, it's really pointing them to the right person, because I just don't know the answer to those questions. I don't know what medication you need or don't need. How could I say anything to that? And it's unfortunate because sometimes I've seen people, speak on something that they really don't have the authority or the background or the education to speak on. So for me, I'm just really conscious of pointing people in that direction, the way they could get whatever help it is that they need. And over the years being here, I've gotten to know people and watch people and see what it is that works or doesn't work. And I could always point somebody back to yourself, for example. If I know somebody's diagnosed with bipolar, I'm not bipolar. I don't know. I mean, I love you, but I can't help you with that. But I know somebody that has that experience, and not only has that experience, but has been able to be fully functional, alive, healthy. So like, that's a lot of hope to be able to say to somebody, well, this person, that phenomenon, whether it's mental health or recovery, it could be grieving, something about a shared experience. People I can understand and have empathy, but I really can't know unless I've had that experience. So there's something powerful in pointing to people that could really help them in the community and outside the community. Outside help, I think, is really vital for anybody that's, suffering in that realm. So.
Excellent answer. Yeah. And I just know in my experience, doing all the holistic practices have really, in addition to seeing the professionals, take my medication, seeing the therapist, talking to the coaches, all the other holistic practices, exercise, proper nutrition, working with my counselors, like that has changed everything to do in addition. And all above, when we were talking about so I call it the recovery ecosystem, the families, the professionals, the friends. What do you see? Like how like obviously you and I are best friends, so we're in the recovery ecosystem and in our recovery with one another. So what do you say to the people that they have loved ones in the recovery space and they don't know how to help, or what should they do? What do you say?
Well, it's really great. It's funny. I always wanted to be on TV. I've been looking at Mike most of the thing just to stay connected with him, but I know I'm not looking at you guys. So I'm going to try and tilt a little bit this way when I answer, whatever questions are remaining. But the family, unfortunately, in the society today, I don't know if I met many people that haven't been touched by somebody that suffers with addiction, whether it's a family member or a friend. There is a statistic, and I don't know the statistic, but there's a statistic that when family participates and gets help, a lot of treatment centers or outpatients, they offer family counseling. And I don't know what the number is, but it's a high percentage. It goes up drastically. The person that's suffering from addiction, if the family engages in the recovery process and get support themselves, because there's a huge community. When we talk about recovery community, it's not only for the person that's afflicted, there's recovery communities out there for family members and friends to give them support. So, I've been on all sides of this over the years, having family members that also have had tremendous struggles with this. So I think that that's something, even my family, when I wound up in the recovery community, my parents were devastated. They were blaming themselves. They thought they did something wrong. And they engaged in seeking some help personally for themselves. And there's different communities out there, different resources. There's Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, it's different family groups. They sought that as well as participated as I was getting counseling. They participated in the counseling. And it's just so important that the family, if they can. Now, there's another scenario where the family could be struggling in active addiction themselves, and that's a really, really, really tough spot. And the person that has that scenario, could look to get that extra support from people in the recovery community. because if your family's not well either, they can't give you what they don't have. So I don't even know what that would be like, but I do know that people that stay close themselves, even if the family can't participate for whatever reasons, maybe they're struggling themselves, can get better as well. But I think that family and friends, it's interesting because, I think the stigma of being an addict, or just with Hollywood, with so much stuff, it's definitely not the same as it was at one time in history. So there's a lot of stuff on social media. You see stars and famous people that are acknowledging that they're that they're sober or clean, they're in the recovery community. So, but there's also people that are never going to understand. Like I could see different people, they'll make a comment like junkies or whatever it is. And I totally get it. Like, people may not understand that I pray. They never encounter it because it doesn't make sense. That's why it's a mental illness, because it doesn't make sense. But they don't have to understand. Only the person that's seeking help has to understand. I don't need to make anybody understand. There's a lot of experience people have out in the world that I don't understand. I don't have that experience. But one of the things that this way of life has given me is I don't have to understand. I just have to be kind and love people. And there's a lot of freedom in that for me. So there's support for the families. I think it's very it's imperative that the family get involved and that the family heal. I mean, my father took a leave of absence. My father was a New York City firefighter, and he took a leave of absence from the fire department. And my parents were devastated. And just to put it in a story, like before I went into treatment, and I didn't want to go into treatment because I didn't want the government to know. I don't know. That's what I thought. I said, they're going to know if I go to rehab. Anyway, my father had sat on the couch with me, and he said that I was breaking his heart. And he said, I hope this is the first day of the rest of your lives. And if you come across this podcast and you're struggling, I really do. I hope that this makes a difference for you in some way, shape, or form, and point you to something that could help you. And I hope this is the first day of the rest of your lives. And then 2 years later, my grandfather died, which was his dad. And I was doing one of the readings at the funeral mass. And we got in the car that morning, and my father said, I'm so proud of you. And I never could have made it through this without you. So as devastating as addiction is to the family and the people that love us, is as healing as it could be if we engage and choose to get better and walk on this journey. So, and then just the last thing, it's not related to the question, but I think about this often because I'll hear a lot of different things. And, what I hear is that recovery isn't for the people that need it, it's for the people that want it. And that's not been my observation, because I've seen a lot of people want to get better, and for whatever reason, they don't, and they die. So just if you're here and you're looking at it, you don't have to want it. You just have to do it. That's the distinguishing factor. It's not wanting to. I still do a lot of things on a daily basis I may not feel like doing or want to do, but I keep doing them because I like the results. So I just wanted to put that in there with the, speaking to somebody, if they're coming across this and you're new and you're listening to this and you're like, I really don't want to do any of this. That's all right. You don't have to want to. You just have to do it.
Right. We're flowing great in this. We're getting through a lot of the questions quick, but we've got like another 30 minutes. So we're just going to rip as many questions as we can.
Okay.
Let's seize the moment, man. Carpe diem, seize the moment. So
Yeah.
Talking about that, the ripple effect. So there's a ripple effect of active addiction that blows up families. And then, as you mentioned, at your grandfather's funeral, 2 years, the ripple effect of your recovery. Let's talk about the ripple effects of recovery. Like, when you and I were coworkers, here's a ripple effect. 15 years later, here we are doing a podcast, trying to bring the message out to people that are struggling. What's been some of the ripple effects of your sobriety?
I just think that they're immeasurable because you can't really know. And the ripple effects of recovery are not unlike the ripple effects even outside of recovery. The interactions that we have with people make a difference. A really positive interaction has people go to the next place feeling a certain way, and a negative interaction has them go into the next place, really maybe a little twisted, you know what it's like to be twisted, right? I feel like sometimes I'm like so peaceful, like with the Dalai Lama, and sometimes I'm like Michael Douglas and falling down. So the ripple effect is, I think it's immeasurable to really see. Like, I have a friend right now, one of just so many people have poured love into me on this journey. So many people have taken time to tell me the truth. So many people have um, just loved me so unconditionally and pointed me in the right direction and made such a difference. Some people know that they did, and some people don't even know that they did. Um, just to give you an example of the ripple effect, because I like stories. Like, that's one of the things when I came to the community, I was, hearing these stories, like people were laughing, and I really didn't think it was funny because I thought like my life is over, like gonna have to do this for the rest of my life. And that really shifted into I get to do this for the rest of my life. And that took some time. And that wasn't the first week, believe me. But I went to a treatment center, and people were talking the language of the heart. And that's really one of the things that was moving to me in the community. People were telling things about themselves. I was born in downtown Brooklyn. I grew up in Staten Island. And, the kind of thinking that existed there was, you don't tell anybody anything about anything. You don't tell them anything that happened in the house. You don't say anything that happened in the neighborhood. If they have pictures, you deny it. Like, that's kind of the thinking that was, where I grew up. So I go to this rehab center, and I'm afraid, more afraid than I could see it even clearer in hindsight than I realized I was. And I'm like, I'm going into this rehab. I don't want the government to know there's going to be like alcoholics and drug addicts here. So it's a little nervous, you know what I mean? I know what kind of people are going to be there. And it was the first time I got access to people speaking, because they were people that, unfortunately, part of the disease of addiction is relapse. It happens to people. I could not get one day for over 2 years, not one single day. And then when God has brought me here, he's kept me here. But there were people that had significant sobriety time, and for whatever the reasons, they stopped practicing. I don't know what happened to each person, but they wound up relapsing. But they had this reference point. And there was this one guy in the rehab. And it's interesting too, because I grew up on the South Shore of Staten Island. And at the time growing up, it was pretty much you were Italian, you were Irish, you were Jewish. It wasn't multicultural. It wasn't a lot of people that were Spanish or African American or Black, whatever. So in this rehab, there's this guy, and his name is Wes. And he's older than me at the time. He's got HIV, and he's Black, and like nothing in common at all. And he says this quote by Emerson. And the quote by Emerson is, "What lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." I'm like, wow, because they were saying when I went to treatment that this was an inside job. And I want you to know that I was so disconnected from myself from such a long time. I said, inside of what? Like, I didn't get it. So I loved this quote, and I thought, wow, that will probably be powerful to say someday. That sounds good. So I went to the guy and I said, can I write down what you said, in the group? And he didn't give me the quote to write down. The quote was from a meditation book. It was a daily meditation. And the book it was a Touchstones book, and it was tattered. It was orange. And the guy wrote in the book, "God prints many books, but few special people. Good luck and God bless, Wes." Now, I want you to know I've never seen that guy ever again in my life. He was from Queens. I don't know if he's alive till today or he's not alive. But really what that was it was the first experience that I realized that somebody from the community was pouring love into me. It wasn't the last, but it was the first. So all of these people, like this guy, Wes, wherever he is, he has no idea that I've been sharing that story for however long that I've been in recovery. He doesn't know that he made that kind of difference for me. And because he made that kind of difference for me, there are people that I put my hand out and hopefully made a difference for them. And then those people would put their hand out to the next person, hopefully, and do it to them. And I wanted that when I came into the community. People had stories. They knew each other for a long time and they would tell these stories. And I'm like, I want stories like that. And I have a lot of them now today because I stayed. And that's the only way to kind of build those stories and to kind of have people give you that love so you could pass it to the next person. It was unbelievable to me because I come from a background, I say the thinking where I grew up wasn't the best, I don't think, right? And here, the people didn't want, this wasn't like pay us back. We're going to do this for you, but pay us back. It was like, we're going to do this for you. We don't want anything. Just pay it forward. So there was that movie, I think, Pay It Forward, and it was great, the movie. So I have no idea what the impact has been, but I know that it's been immeasurable and not, I mean, and I'm talking not personally, yes, but also through the community. If we could ever watch it on a screen and see, it would be like any movie where you see the triumph of the human spirit, because I love the triumph of the human spirit. That's like when I watch a movie and somebody's overcoming, it moves me to tears. Like I'll cry if somebody dies too in a movie. I'm not embarrassed to say that, but I also get really moved when I see somebody overcome, challenges. And I've gotten a front row seat over the years to witness miracle after miracle and watch families' greatest hope come to life. And I've watched tragedy over tragedy and watched families realize their worst fears because the people die. And that's really the earnestness at the bottom of even the reason for this podcast is hopefully somebody, is scrolling through or whatever, and they hear something here and it leads them to the next thing that could help them. That's been very much my experience. It's been the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's just a matter of staying open to what it is, because there's, I think Einstein says you can look at everything as if it's a miracle or it's not. And he said, I choose to look at everything as if it's a miracle. So.
Excellent. I really had a cough on that. I didn't want to. We're going to edit that.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good.
Mm.
So the elders of the recovery community, they have a legacy, the legacy of service. So how does it feel like to you? Now you're an elder member, still young,
Mm-hmm.
young at heart, always young because your last name.
Yeah.
But what does it look like?
Well, it's really interesting because when I came to the community, they have like a title like old timers, and I'm like, I prefer to be called the long timer. But what it looks like is never taking anything for granted. Really being grateful for everything that was ever done to help me and to support me, and really looking to pass that on. I've been involved in service in the recovery community, which has been outstanding, but I'll even share, because it was important for me for the recovery community to be the most important, but for it to be a bridge back to life. So like, I'm also a Rotarian, and my Rotary knows my history because I usually disclose it in my personal relationships or people that I'm looking to build relationships with, because it's just such a big part of my life. I feel like I'd be hiding like such a big part of my life. So I'll always share that with people. And, God has used that over and over to, help people. But the Rotary is like service over self. And I recently, somebody came to the Rotary, this gentleman with a non-for-profit, and he has 7 children. 4 of them are adopted. 2 of them were girls with special needs. And he was just coming to the Rotary because they're looking, after they get to be a certain age, these children, they're looking to, like, what can they do to keep them engaged? So they make dog treats is what they do. And I had an opportunity to go and make dog treats and just to be with people. So it's not only service in the recovery community, it's really of looking to be of service in the world to anybody, anywhere, at any time. So service has been really a a big part of me healing and a big part of me getting better because my nature is not to give. You know, I went to a Catholic grammar school and I was in kindergarten, and they told the class, they said, it's in giving you receive. And I really thought they were trying to trick me. And I said, you could save that for the slower kids. I know it's in getting you receive, you know, that's what I was thinking. So, but it really is. And the joy in giving is I can never outgive what God has given me. The more I give, the more I receive. It just flows back. It's like a spiritual law from my point of view. Like gravity is a physical law. Doesn't matter if you believe in it, it's going to happen, gravity. And the same thing in the realm of the spirit. Giving of myself is the best, most fulfilling thing I could do. I had some nice material things. I don't know, they're so fleeting. Feels like it's nice, but goes away. But being able to really be a service to somebody and make a difference, that's been, there was a guy, he used to say, it's enlightened self-interest. It's in my best interest. It's not because I'm a good person or because I want to do it. It's like in my best interest to heal and experience joy in life. It's really in the giving, not in the getting. So service has been a huge, huge part of, you know, my journey. And it's one of the things that when all else fails, you know, when I'm twisted inside, because you know what I mean? I'm a human being, so that stuff happens. When I'm there, if I could think of somebody else, it always, you know, helps me get free.
Nice. All right, we're gonna mix it up here a little bit. So I'm gonna try and move some.
Right.
Maybe more focus on here. See.
We'll tilt a little bit this way. The whole
Yeah.
beginning, I was looking at you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get out of the screen kind of and just try to.
Be careful. Mhm.
We'll do shorts, like 90-second questions.
Yeah,
How
whatever.
does that look? You hear me fine through this thing?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right.
Say it and talk again, because I want to make sure I can hear you. So I can't tell if it's from the room or the microphone.
Definitely can hear me through the microphone. I hear me through it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So just repeat the question back to when I was.
Okay.
All right. How does that look? That looks good there?
I think it looks good.
All right. What would you recommend to somebody with one day? What do they do?
So what I recommend to somebody that has one day, and I'll tell you a story with this too, is to pray. When I went into treatment, I don't know if you can identify, but I just think I was smarter than everybody else. So I went to a counselor and I said, you could tell me, I know what you're telling these other people, but what do I have to do? And he said, you have to pray. And I remember thinking, this guy just blew me off. He doesn't know either. And I'm here to tell you that I need to pray as if my life depends on it, because it does. And that doesn't mean I pray and stay in bed. I just need to pray and take a step, pray and take a step, and pray and take a step. So it's pray and show up would be the answer to that question for me, for somebody with one day.
What do you recommend to somebody with 3 years that's not feeling it? That's maybe making one meeting a month?
Yeah, so somebody that's in the community for, you know, 1 to 5 years, 3 years, or whatever it is, and they're coming and they're suffering, I recommend service. I recommend putting your hand out to the person walking through the door. You know, it will get old if I come and just look to take. The coffee may not be so good. That guy just did say the same thing for the 365. That's all. But if I'm not there worried about any of that, and I'm just there to be a service, and what is it that I could give, that's been the keys to the kingdom for me.
What could you change? If you could change anything about the recovery community, what would it be?
If I could change anything about the recovery community, I don't know that I would change anything. Just looking to see if there's anything.
Let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
What would be better in recovery community? Maybe catering to new. I live in South Florida, so there's a bunch of newcomers. What would be better in the newcomer space?
Yeah, well, South Florida specifically is a dynamic with so many treatment centers, and there's a place for treatment centers, but they're really for discovery. Recovery begins when you get out of there. And when you have a large contingency packed into an area, people that are new, it could be very challenging because it's easy for them to drag each other down. So I don't know if I have an answer for that, but for the new people, if you're in that kind of situation, getting connected with people that have been grounded, like we talked about earlier, like sponsorship, mentorship, just putting yourself with people that know their way out of the hole that could really support you. So you can't change that environment specifically in South Florida because there's a lot of treatment centers there, which, like I said, have a place, but it's also tough dynamics. You have people in sober living down there that is sober, very short period of time running a sober house. So that brings certain challenges.
In 30 seconds, how would you define a miracle?
Something that was never going to happen no matter what I did. It's something divine, something that on all of my power, on my best day, I couldn't make that happen, no matter how much I wanted to or how much I tried, but just miracle upon miracle. Let me think about the word miracle and what I want to say about that. I don't really know. I know coincidences, people think things are coincidences, but there's been undeniable story after story that you just know. It's almost like you catch God loving you. It's like, oh my God, how many times I had a thought in my head that I didn't even share with anybody. And I went into a community of people and they answered the question I had in my head without me even asking the question. I mean, how is that even possible? So, and just the people that got put in my life, there's a divine order. And I think that it's always at play, but I can't be awake to it unless I'm awake to it. And that's, something that I get present to over and over again when I'm listening beyond my own thoughts.
Okay. What's your favorite quote and why?
What's my favorite quote and why? I want to tell the orgasm story. I'm not going to do that.
Edit.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Well, I'll tell you something that I just came across very recently, like yesterday, I was at somewhere. One of the things that I always love, because it keeps coming back circularly to service, to service. And one of the things that is said in the community that I hear is you can't keep it unless you give it away. And last night I was somewhere and I was listening again, and what the guy said on the Zoom was, it's not that you can't keep it unless you give it away. You can't get it unless you give it away. And I thought that was so profound, that the only access to getting it is to giving it away.
Yeah, I heard a spin on that as well, where he said, if you can't give it away, you probably ain't even got it.
That's
Half the
right.
room got pissed off, but I
Right,
loved
right.
it. I
Yeah,
loved
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
loved
yeah.
it. I loved it.
Yeah.
If you had to describe recovery in 45 seconds, what would it be?
Thinking of others way more than I think of myself, constantly being in the state of being willing to learn something new and being willing to surrender over and over again to my ego or my identity and really get connected back to love, because my mind goes crazy sometimes. So I would think that would be one of the things for me, being restored back to love over and over again, being willing to do things that I don't want to do continually because I know the fruits that it brings. So those are some of the things in 45 seconds.
What about same time frame, 45 seconds? What does life beyond your wildest dreams mean to you?
Oh my God, that's really funny because they say all of these things in the community that are annoying to me when I get here. But beyond your wildest dreams, and I'm not even kidding, it took me probably 20 years to realize that that means whatever your wildest dreams are, it's beyond that. Even though the sentence is beyond your wildest dreams, I didn't put it together. It took me 20 years. That's how sharp I am. So one of the things that I could say is, if you knew, and they told me, write down, if you wrote down what you wanted to get out of your recovery, you'd be selling yourself short. What I could tell you is I never could have written down the things I experienced, because when I got here, I didn't even know they existed.
Nice. What about meditation in 30 seconds?
Okay. So meditation for me is being able to just observe what's going on, just to get a little bit of separation, to know that those are my thoughts. I'm not going to change them. I'm not going to stop them. But getting that little separation gives me access to not having to act on them. It's the access point to me, the difference between being able to respond opposed to react. Now, I still react, but practice in meditation gives me access to a lot more of being able to wait. It could be a minute, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 2 days, and then go back to respond instead of just reacting in a way that, I don't know if this ever happened to you. I wind up, I'm right, but then I act so terrible, I'm wrong. I don't know if you experienced that in life. I've had that experience quite a few times in my life. So meditation is an access to respond instead of react.
What does it mean to help other people? How do you help other people?
I think the biggest way that helping other people is listening, is sharing, some of my experience, whether it's in a story or something that's happened to me. And also helping other people is not being afraid to tell them the truth. Like, to be able to point something out to them that they may not be saying, even though they're probably going to get annoyed, because I did too, but love them enough to tell them the truth so they can have an opportunity to really grow.
How would you define language of the heart through your own experience?
It's not something from my head, like coming even into this, podcast. I don't know what's going to be said, it's the language of the heart is really looking inside for me to what's really there, not hiding behind, because I've noticed this for myself too. I can hide behind books, concepts. I can hide behind God because I, say what I think people want to hear. But the language of the heart is really, being able to share my humanity and not really be overly concerned about what people are going to think, because I'm being vulnerable, saying the way things really, really are for me. I'm scared. I don't know. I didn't know you could say any of those things. I thought you had to know. I thought you couldn't be scared because how my humanity, even crazy things that I think, being able to tell somebody, you know what I was thinking? Certain people have access to that with me, not everybody. And I cared so much what people thought. It was like everything. And I'm not going to say I don't care what anybody thinks, because, if I admire you and respect you, I do. I care what you think. I would like the feedback. I'm definitely at a point in my life that it's okay to make a mistake. And it's also okay for somebody to come in and say, that was a little off. All right. You know what I mean? Maybe it was a little off. I got to be responsible. So that's a lot of what the language of the heart is for me.
What are some of the blueprints from your culture that you had to battle through in early recovery or long-term recovery? Like, what are some of the challenges that, you talked about earlier with my neighborhood, deny.
Well, there's a few different things. My nationality is I'm Italian and Irish. And I often say this, that I grew up prejudiced against myself, because the Italian people would have something to say about the Irish people, and the Irish would maybe have some things to say about the Italians. So here I am, I'm a little kid, and one of my cousins on the Italian side is, you're Italian, you're Irish, you're Italian, you're more Irish. I'm a little kid, I'm like 3 years old. My mother said I was American. I don't know what the answer to that question is. But even that, just that duality of prejudice. And I've shared that before in the community, and an Italian guy will come up to me after the meeting and he'll say, so what was it like growing up half Italian and half ashamed? You know what I mean? An Irish guy would say that too. So I'm like, didn't you just hear what I just said? So it's really funny to me. So that's partly, something just as part of my story. And that's really about self-acceptance. That's just an example of it, because that was something that I really struggled with, my just accepting myself and loving myself. And I know it doesn't sound too cool, but that's really what I was always looking for, was to be accepted and to be loved. And the other thing was, everybody talked about functional families. Everybody came from a dysfunctional family in a dysfunctional neighborhood. So I think this was valuable to me. So I was in counseling at the time, and I asked the therapist, I said, what's a functional family? And the therapist said to me, a functional family isn't a family that doesn't have problems. Everybody has problems or issues or concerns, right? But a functional family addresses those things and works together towards a solution. And that's really a huge part of what the recovery community has given me. Not that I don't have problems, not that I don't have issues, but I could address the problems and work to the other side in a healthy way. So those were some of the things that I had overcome those ways of thinking, of being able to tell somebody, what's really going on with me. And I have a lot of freedom, more than I've ever had in my whole life. And that's really what I was looking for when I got here. Really, I was looking for the pain to stop when I got here. But I was looking for, how do you live without, please don't take it all away. Like, I need to medicate myself in some way, shape, or form. So I can tell you that, you know, we have access to freedom, not just, relief.
Okay. What does being comfortable in your own skin mean to you today?
It means being uncomfortable and not trying to change the feeling, to be able to be with whatever's going on without judging myself or judging it, and just, going to the other side, whether it's through prayer, meditation, talking to somebody, looking inside, like what's really going on. A lot of things with me are fear. Like, what am I afraid of is a good question for me to ask myself. So it's not about not or always being comfortable. It's about being able to be uncomfortable without doing something to hurt myself or just look to change the feeling. I have to process things. Sometimes I can process things within 5 minutes, and sometimes it's a 48 to 72 hour. Like, it's just, I'm struggling a little bit with it, and I need to use some of the tools to kind of get to the other side. So being comfortable in my own skin is being able to be uncomfortable in my own skin, is like one of the things I would say about that.
Okay. So should repeat this one. I'm not going to go in there. So, when you get angry or pissed off, what do you end up? What is your go-to? What is your practice?
Yeah, if I get angry, which I do, it's obviously to be able to breathe and pause, right? And then it's, the next step of it is to I do like pray to see like what's going on with me. What is it that I'm afraid of? Because a lot of times anger specifically, I'm scared of something, whatever it is. Whether I'm scared I'm not going to get what I want, or I'm going to lose what I have, or I'm scared something's not going to go my way. And I think this is the way that it should go. Resistance. So go to, for me, is definitely, I do pray, I do meditate, and I also need to, share with somebody else what's going on. And sometimes just hearing myself say it gets me to the, gets me to the other side. And then there's been plenty of times where if you had me on video, I'd be embarrassed. You'd be proud of me sometimes too, but there's plenty of times where I'd be embarrassed. And one of the other accesses to getting back to some kind of comfort is taking responsibility. Whether it's with my wife or my daughter, that's where it really shows up a lot. Usually I'm nice to the people that I meet in the street, but at home, being responsible is what restores me a lot of times back to love.
Okay. You had to describe your experience with the 7 pillars. What's one or two takeaways that have helped you mostly with the 7 pillars?
Hmm. So with the 7 pillars, which are spirituality, I don't know if you could see all of them here. It's spirituality, positive self-talk, social, support, exercise, nutrition, and sleep. I think spirituality is really one of the core pillars. I can't seem to fix my sick mind with my sick mind, so I really do need that spiritual, whether it's music or I do participate. I went back to church. You do whatever you want in the recovery community, but I did go back to church. Music really makes a difference for me. Spirituality, exercise makes a huge difference for me. I need to release those endorphins. It helps release anxiety for me. So exercise is a big part. I still eat for taste, so I don't have the best diet, but exercise and spirituality, I do have so much more of an experience of being able to tell myself and believe and know positive things than when I got here. That was one of the things I would go into, like I'd be all twisted or I'd be afraid or foggy, whatever it is. And I go into a room and just be with people and listen to them share. And I would hear 1, 5, 10, 20 positive things that was able to be heard by my brain that I was not going to say to myself. So I do have some muscle in that now, which I really had very little when I got here. I wasn't telling myself anything positive.
To do intro again. All right.
Yeah.
This is Mike D from Angels Over Addiction, and to my left is my main man, James Young from North Carolina, aka Staten Island. I'm not going to go there with you, brother, but he's a board member, a great member of recovery community, and he's here to share his experience today. And I'm just going to ask him some questions. We're going to spitfire what long-term recovery, what short-term recovery looks like. And this is my guy, dude. So stay plugged in, and hopefully you can hear some great things from him.
Awesome.
You want to do an intro on your own, or for your for your meditation thing?
No.
I can clip it out. Is there anything else that needs to be said, or?
Bro, I don't even know what the hell we said or whatever it was. Fine. I just, you know what I mean? It's a demonstration of just being able to show up and be willing to be vulnerable and just share. So I just really pray for anybody that's looking for help, anybody that really thinks that there's no hope, that if you come across this, that you not only find hope, but you find a pathway to healing, because permanent recovery is possible. Generational recovery is possible. I've seen that over the past few years. I've seen a grandfather, their son, and their grandson all get better. So a lot of people talk about generational addiction being passed down, which is true, but I'm so grateful I've gotten to witness generational recovery as well.
Anything else you want to say on your own? Let me see that screen here for you.
Yeah.
Like, even if you want to do something for a spiritual entrepreneur, I would clip that.
I know. I don't have anything right now. I mean, I always have a million things going on, but just sit for a minute.
The training point doesn't come from the audio. I thought about that, you know.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna just share one more story, because it's been on, you know, knowing that I was coming here today, I was thinking a lot about, excuse me, I'll start again. Coming here today, I knew I was going to be doing this podcast, and I was just thinking about a lot of reflecting back to my journey, where I am today, how I got here. And one of the things that I wanted to share, especially if you're somebody that comes across this podcast and maybe, you know, you're really in a dark place and you're looking for some hope. What I love stories, so I that was something that I got early on. People would tell these stories and I'd be fascinated by them. So this is one of my favorite stories that I've heard on the journey. So I'm going to share it with you now. I hope it makes a difference. There's a guy, he's, you know, suffering from alcoholism, drug addiction, whatever he is. He's ripped up, all cut up, and he's in a hole. And guy comes stumbling out of a bar. It's an attorney. The attorney says, "Oof, you look like you're in bad shape in that hole. When you get out of that hole, you come see me. We'll sue them, sue the city." Throws the card in and goes off. A little while later, another guy comes out of a bar, stumbling a little bit. It's a doctor. The doctor sees the guy in the hole. He says, "Wow, you look like you're in bad shape. When you get out of that hole, you come and see me and I'll patch you up." And he throws his card into the hole. About 15 minutes later, there's a recovery community gathered, and one of the people comes out of the meeting and he jumps into the hole. And the guy in the hole says, "What the heck are you doing? Now we're both stuck in this hole. And the guy from the recovery community says, I was in this hole. I know the way out. So if you're looking for a way out, we absolutely have a way out. There's so much help out there. Don't be afraid to reach out. And I'm just grateful for so many things in my life, and I'm grateful to be able to participate here today with you. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, I love stories. You may have heard my story about the guy in the hole. I did that one. So there's just one more story I think I'll share today. And it's a story about there's about 1 million starfish washed up on the beach. And this little kid is on the beach and he's picking up a starfish and he's throwing one at a time. He's throwing the starfish back into the ocean. This grumpy guy is walking on the beach and he says to the kid, "What are you doing?" He says, "What you're doing is not going to make a difference. Look at all of these starfish. There's 1 million starfish out here." So the little kid thinks about it and he looks up at the guy and he picks up a starfish and he throws it back in the ocean. And he says to the old man, "It made a difference to that one." And that's a lot of so many people are hurting and so many people are suffering. Some never even make it into the recovery community. Others make a beginning and it doesn't work out, and others stay long term. So I hope that you're one of the starfish that get, if you're watching this, that get thrown back into the ocean if you're looking for that kind of help.
You know the man in the flood one too, or
No?
no? You done?
I'm done.
All right.
Ooh, thank you, brother. I think you got a lot of content there that could be chopped up or whatever.
Wow.
Good.